Hey everyone, just doing a little garden update. We've really expanded this little food forest here. This little triangular food forest section is expanded inwardly, so upwardly. This little lemon tree that I rooted and got in the ground next to the base of this old oak tree. We've been planting tomatoes and squash anywhere there's bare soil, and it's really shading the roots of the trees above. We have some volunteer squash popping up here and there out of a basket. So some of it's in a basket, some of it's not. We've been putting grapes. So here's a little grape underneath every tree so that they can kind of climb up naturally. And we've taken the goat manure and the hay that they didn't eat and just kind of spreading it around. And we're making berms. So I don't know if you can see that, but this is kind of like a little miniature valley in here. And planted into the valley, I put more tomatoes. And up in here I got some squash growing. And a little bit of corn and things. Some of these fruit trees are producing pretty well. So the plums and cherries have done really well. Any kind of stone fruit around here is just happy. Got a fig in here. It's got a nice deep well, a little tree well, and a basket down there, and I covered it with a lot of manure and compost and just really gave it a lot of topsoil and just everything to hold moisture in. And then of course the little heirloom pumpkins are growing right over there and shading even further, shading the base of the trees. And then behind that's the giant purple mustard. So that really goes good on like a steak sandwich, anything really, in place of lettuce. It's got a little spice, kind of horseradishy. And then some of these things are voluntarily grown too, like amaranth. Several different types of amaranth around here, and it likes it around the trees. So it's just kind of shading the whole area, giving the backside of this area all morning long a shade break from the sun. And then at noon it shades the base of the tree, and then in the afternoon it shades the other side. And in a minute I'll show you how shading really helps your plants grow. So all in here, get some chard and more amaranth growing at the base of the tree. So the tree is adding shade to the amaranth, which is spreading outward and then shading the tree further. They're working together. Another little pomegranate growing. It's one of the first plants I planted, this grape. The gophers ate most of the grapes off. So now I plant the grapes, the ones I care about, making sure that they survive. I plant them in a wire basket. This one, it's not doing terribly good, but it's not doing bad either. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of just hanging in there. It's not growing as vigorous as I would have expected. So this is all pumpkins, and got some lacticarium wild lettuce in here. Let's see. I've been thinning out this lavender because it's turning into like a shrub now, like a wooded shrub. It's not so clumped together for harvesting and making lavender essential oil. It's just kind of growing like a shrub. So I'm just thinning it out and using it to make clones, which then I'll plant all around the yard and create more year-round flowers and forage for the bees. Little cactus is doing good in the elderberry patch. Elderberries are really taken off along the fence line here. And the flowers are just gorgeous. There's like this cream yellow, beautiful polka dotted plant. Here's another grape. This is a Pinot Noir variety from old canes from a vineyard. I grabbed the canes in the wintertime, put them in soil and in flower pots, and then grew them. Once they were stable enough to transplant, like about now, then I went ahead and planted them. And there's pretty much ones around every tree, like I said before. Down in here, more grapes, amaranth, artichokes, all doing really well. What happens though is when you have a big leaf like this and it provides shade near tomato, then the tomato really grows a lot better than if it's just exposed. Like a little bit further down, this tomato is further south. A couple of these are. They don't get quite as much cover. They have a lot more sun exposure. They're farther from the center of this little bullseye pattern. So we got the tree in the center, and then we got herbs and small shrubs around that, and then we got the squash, kind of like the Three Sisters concept. But it's saving us quite a bit of water, because by watering the squash, which is producing really good, like some summer squash, by watering all this stuff, it's also watering the tree and shading the root base of the tree, the drip line. We got a fruit press, so we're pressing our own juice. So we'll buy a bag of oranges, press them, get all the juice out, have orange juice for the kids, and then we use those around the base of the plants to fertilize. So I'll probably throw some leaves over there to help it decompose faster. But yeah, the garden's doing really well. It's expanding. Pretty soon all these tomatoes are going to start producing. We get even more pumpkins and squash. Not a huge fruit yield this year, except for that lemon tree. It's like ornamented with lemons. This little orange tree's had a rough go at it. The snails like to get on it and puncture holes in it, and then the leaves get all curled and gnarly. So occasionally I'll come through and spray all the snails off and get them off the tree. But this needs a little more pruning. I've been using this as a cloning kind of mother plant too. Whenever I have to prune anything, really, I try to propagate off of it in the greenhouse. But I just went through that first big wave, planted out a lot of stuff. So now I have a bunch more empty planter pots. Now this little spot, see, I have these little areas where they're kind of like little mini forest groves. And then as they expand, they begin to connect together. So this little section's a little planted a little closer, and it's starting to connect up. But this area has done it too. So that's a old crabapple tree. It's always been gnarly and struggling, gets sunburnt every year. Not this year. With all these pumpkins growing all over it, up it, it's shading the trunk of the tree from the sun. Thinned out a bunch of the apples. And we're just gonna give those to the goats and the horses, but the apples are really doing good now. Tree's getting lots of water because we're using all this summer squash to shade the base, so we're watering that, and it's just really all working together, coming together nice. These sunflowers are same kind of broad leaf as the pumpkin, but they shade even taller. They cast a taller shadow. And it's just protecting things like these little apple trees, little bare root trees that we got at Costco. a bunch of different types and stuck them in the ground, and now look, I'm taller than me. Part of the problem with the pear tree, we don't get very many pears. I think it's because it's not self-pollinating. So, and I don't know what blooms at the same time as this pear tree. So I just got a bunch of different varieties and stuck them in the ground, different apples and pears, and hopefully they'll sync up. A couple will sync up here and there with each other, and we'll get a higher yield. It's a good pear tree though. The pears are good. They're just kind of rare to find. Pomegranates on this side of the yard are doing a little bit better. This one's about shoulder high. These ones are more about waist high. Was tempted to prune them, but I pruned them early this spring before everything started popping. So I think I'm going to hold off until they go dormant again and just let them take all this energy and stick it down into the roots. I probably won't get very many pomegranates this year, even though you see a few blossoms. But there's a couple pomegranates here and there. Whatever the kids don't pick and take away. Here's one. Little pomegranate. Well, it's going to take a few years to get them to really take off and produce fruit. Get little beehives over here. And this neighborhood's just covered in landscaping. Even the neighbor's house, I don't know if you can see up there. That's all fiddlenecks, sticky monkey flower, all stuff bees like. Oh yeah, these arches. So you can train these. These are just livestock panels. A lot of people make the arches a lot taller so that they're just wide enough to walk through, but you can stand straight up. I don't mind kind of crouching. So it makes a really nice spot though. I hang out under here with the twins. I mowed a little patch under here in the grass and let some curly dock and amaranth and stuff grow back in here to kind of wall it off. And now what we have is this little archway beginning to appear, and it's going to start having fruit dangling from it, pumpkins and stuff dangling from it. We got the big sunflowers. It's just kind of a cool little dugout spot, you know. So I kind of like this pattern because it's low. You can sit under here. It'll be really easy to harvest these pumpkins as they begin to hang. They might need a little support as the pumpkins get, you know, about a foot across, these little heirlooms. And I just keep training these little side spurs to grow on this little arbor. You can see above that, got even more sunflowers. All guarding this tree. So what I think was going on with this old tree is it was lonely. It needed to be part of a little forest. It wasn't kind of meant to be a lone standing tree. So, and I think that's the way a forest normally grows anyway, right? You have meadows, of course. Here's a little miniature meadow. But then you have the forest edge. And there's an interaction there. And you kind of have these dispersed pomegranates that pollinate each other, attract more hummingbirds and on up. And you have little clearings in the forest. Maybe little pathways where a tree fell down and cleared out a whole straight section. And yeah, the grapevines will grow up the trees and encourage them to act more like grapes, and the trees more like trees. it's all supposed to just work together. So anyway, I guess that's the point of what I'm saying. Is that it's there's a little bit of random and there's a little bit of order, just so that I can help kind of shepherd this little miniature food forest and keep it growing. You notice some of my trees are growing straight up, but a lot of them I planted at an angle. So like, here's a couple trees. I planted them kind of at a steep angle and they've corrected. So I do what I do and then they kind of adapt after that. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, this is only about 2 years in. Maybe 3 if you count some of the cactus and things I planted right when I first moved in. So like 2-3 years of just kind of planting things, letting it adapt and expand, planting a few more, scattering seeds around, adding a few more things, and then pretty soon you're wondering where you're going to plant the next thing. Like there's no more room. Or you feel like there's no more room. There's always a little bit of room to pop something in. Get some blueberries hiding back in here. There's some blueberries. I'm planting them kind of close together. These ones are kind of discreet, kind of behind the berm. Blueberries need other blueberries to pollinate, so they need a couple different varieties. They need to be relatively close. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll talk to you guys later. I hope you found this interesting, and let me know how your gardens are growing. They're going through interesting times, and we want to make sure that that we're producing, that we're still moving forward, that we're still optimistic about the future, which I am. Have a good day.